Let's go. Who's excited to be at youth tonight? Oh, that was weak. Who's excited to be at youth tonight? There it is. Man, it's been a minute since I've been up here. I'm excited to be with you guys tonight. Tonight we are finishing our series, Church in the Wild. Who's enjoyed this series, Church in the Wild? Oh, 4 people. Come on. Who's enjoyed our series, Church in the Wild? Let's go. Tonight, we might be finishing our series, but we are not finishing our purpose. God still has a purpose for us to be the church in the wild. And for the past couple of weeks, we've talked about what this means. What does it look like to be the church in the wild? What's it mean to be church in the wild? Friends, I need you to understand something tonight. You and I have the same purpose. You and I have been called by God to do the same exact thing, and that is to love Jesus. Everybody say love Jesus. And love people. Everybody say love people. Love Jesus and love people. Everything else in our lives, where we live, what we do, who we are married to, whatever, everything else in our lives is meant to work out our purpose, for us to live out our purpose, which is to love God and love people. Everybody say love Jesus, love people. So church in the wild, we've been talking about this the past couple weeks. Church in the wild is this radical idea, this radical thought, this radical movement, if you will, that says I have been mandated by Jesus to live my truest life, to be my realest self, to be the person that I've been created to be outside of these 4 walls. Because church is not a building, church is a people. And you are the church, and we have been mandated by Jesus to be the church in the wild, to show our friends, our teachers, our neighbors, our parents, our coworkers, and every other person we come into contact with on the daily that we believe in and follow Jesus every single day of our lives. Is there anybody who's willing to be the church in the wild? That's what it is. That's what it is. And friends, to be the person that God has created you to be, telling his story and watching our supernatural God encounter our friends radically change their lives, friends, that means that we have to step up. That means that we have to be the church in the wild. That means we have to be people that shine the light of Jesus Christ to the darkest places that we will ever go. We have to be people who carry his message, who carry his hope into the hallways of our schools to let everybody know that your life matters. You are here for a reason, and you are loved beyond measure by the God who created you. Did you know? Did you know that the friend that you have at school that is struggling with depression and anxiety can experience freedom in Jesus Christ? Did you know that the friend that you have who is having an identity crisis right now, they're not secure in their lives, they're not confident in who they are, they don't know what the meaning and what their purpose is, they can be radically changed by Jesus, their creator, and in a moment receive full understanding of who they are and who they were created to be? Did you know that your friend who is struggling with an illness, with a hurt, with a pain, can be healed by Jesus in a moment? Did you know that all it takes is for you to step up to your calling, be who God has created you to be his chosen people, his royal priesthood, his light to this dark world, to be the church in the wild, and all of that can happen outside of this building? Did you know that you don't have to be at youth on a Wednesday night to see your friend be healed? You don't have to be at youth on Wednesday night to see the chains of depression fall off of your friend. You don't have to be in this building on a Wednesday night to see the greatest miracle of all time happen in your friend's life, and that's the miracle of salvation, that a lost soul would come to life in Jesus Christ, that they would be rescued from death and given eternal life. Come on. Somebody should be excited that you carry within your bones the Spirit of God, the living God who can do anything in a moment. If we are willing to say, God, I will be who you've called me to be. Y'all ain't excited. I'm going to close it up, man. Ain't nobody even want to be here tonight. Yo, we've been called to be the church in the wild. We've been called to be people who will take Jesus Christ to the nations, starting in our homes, starting in our backyards. And if you actually believe that Jesus is who he said he is, then friends, you should be more excited about Jesus than the fact that I'm wearing a Michael Jordan Birmingham Barons jersey tonight. Some of y'all don't even know what that is because you ain't fans of Space Jam. But let me tell you something. Jesus is far more important than any other person we will ever experience in this world. Jesus is the only person who can save your souls. Jesus is the only person who can save your friends. Jesus is the only person who shines light in the darkness, and the darkness cannot quench it, y'all. We should be excited to carry the name of Jesus on our backs to our schools. Did you know that if you would step up to the calling that Jesus has placed on your life, you would see your teachers and your principals and the faculty at the school, the hall monitors, start receiving Jesus Christ? Friends, we've been called to be the church in the wild, not just the church in the building. Church in the wild. Everybody say church in the wild. But how frustrating is it? How frustrating is it when you've been praying for a friend, you've been inviting them to church, you've been telling them about Jesus for years, but they still haven't come to a relationship with him? Man, I know that pain. I know that frustration. I know that anger. I have my best friend. I've been praying for him for years. Since the day I met him, I told him when we were in second grade, I go to church, I love Jesus, I want to introduce you to Jesus. And when we were in second grade, he said, August, I don't want to know who Jesus is. August, I don't care about who Jesus is. And I said, that's okay, I still love you and Jesus still loves you and I'm going to pray for you. Thanks, but I don't care. And since we were in second grade, I prayed for that kid. And finally, when we got into high school, I convinced him, come to church with me, bro. I want you to come experience church with me. It's just a party on a Wednesday night. Sure, we sing some songs, but it's fine. You don't have to sing, right? Just come to church with me. And he did. He came to church with me. When we were in high school, he would come to this very building with me. He would sit through service, and at the end of service every week, I'd be like, bro, what'd you get from me? He'd be like, nothing. Nothing. And I would get so frustrated, and I would get so angry because I felt like I got everything. And you just be like, I guess it ain't for me. I guess it ain't for me. And I would tell him every day, I love you so much. I'm praying for you. Jesus cares about you. You have a purpose for your life. Jesus has created you for something great in this world. Cool. Thanks. And the indifference on that man's face would anger me so much that I just wanted to slap him. And one time I did. But he beat me up. Because he's bigger than me. But I understand the frustration. I understand the pain. I understand the hurt. I understand the anger of praying for your friends and trying to tell them about Jesus and inviting them to church and trying to tell them about the hope that you have in Jesus Christ and trying to tell them that their best life is a life that follows Jesus. And them just saying, cool, thanks for letting me know, but I'm good where I'm at. I'm good with what I got. But here's the truth. There have been days in my life that have been extremely difficult. And I've been extremely angry that I wanted to give up on him. I wanted to give up praying for him. I felt like I was wasting my time. I wanted to give up telling him about Jesus. But God told me this. It's not about the product. It's about the process. It's not about the product. It's about the process. It ain't about the end goal. It's about the process. Jesus told me we have to recognize that God has a plan, and all we have to do is trust him through the process. Jesus told me, August, are you willing to do what I'm asking you to do and trust me with him? Are you willing to do what I'm asking you to do and trust me with him? Friends, we have to be loyal to the process that God has us on. We have to be loyal to God through the process, because the Bible tells us that if we are to stay loyal, if we would choose to be loyal to the process, if we would choose to be loyal to what God is doing, no matter what the outcome is, that he will work everything together for the good of those who love him. And far too often we give up on the process, that we miss out on what he's been trying to work together for our good. Far too often we choose not to be loyal. We choose to give up. And God says, but I'm trying to work it all together. If you would just trust me. That was fantastic. That scared me. Mitchell, your guitar's broken, homie. Everybody say R.I.P. We'll get it later. Far too often, everybody say loyal. Loyal. Far too often we choose not to be loyal to the process because we don't get the outcome that we want to have. Far too often we say, God, I'm done waiting on you. God, I'm done trusting in you. You're not showing me what I've been asking for you to show me. You're not giving me what I've been asking for you to give me. And so, God, I'm going to abandon this because the outcome is not what I've expected it to be. And God is saying, no, don't give up. If you would just trust me in the process, if you would just believe for me in the process, if you would just be loyal to the process, I will work it all together for the good of you because you love me. Friends, we can't give up just because it gets difficult. If we believe that our God is who he says he is, then we have to step up in faith that trust that he will do what he said he would do, as long as we do what he's asking us to do. We have to trust. We have to be loyal. We have to believe that if God is actually who he said he is, then he's going to do exactly what he promised us he would do. And I'm just going to stay loyal to the process. And so tonight, my sermon is titled Loyalty. Because I got loyalty. Never mind. 1 Samuel 24. Everybody, if you got a Bible, turn to 1 Samuel chapter 24. In the book of Samuel, we encounter this guy by the name of David. A lot of you have probably heard about David. He was the king of Israel. And Jesus comes from the line of David because David was the greatest king that Israel ever had. And we meet David in the book of 1 Samuel. Samuel is a prophet. He's God's mouthpiece. And Samuel was sent to David's house, David's father's house. His name is Jesse. He was sent to Jesse's house to find David and anoint David king over Israel. Here's the problem. Everybody say, here's the problem. The problem is Israel already had a king. His name was Saul. And so Saul is sitting on the throne of Israel, but God has a different plan. God said, Saul, you are no longer going to be king over Israel. Instead, David, from the line of Jesse, is going to be king over Israel. And so he sent his prophet Samuel to Jesse's house to anoint David as king. So now we got two kings. We've got David, who's been anointed by God. We've got Saul, who's sitting on the throne. And so now Saul is angry. He's upset. He's not a fan of this David person because David is going to overthrow Saul. That's what he believes. That's what he thinks. And so Saul is literally hunting David as if he was an animal. Because Saul wanted to kill David because David is the rightful king of Israel. So this is where we pick up the story in 1 Samuel chapter 24, starting in verse 1. It says this: After Saul returned from fighting the Philistines, he was told that David had gone into the wilderness of En-Gedi. Next one. So Saul chose 3,000 elite troops from all Israel and went to search for David and his men near the rocks of the wild goats. Next slide. There it is. At the place where the road passes some sheepfolds, Saul went into a cave to relieve himself. Pause. He went to go to the bathroom. Just the Bible, okay? He's going to the bathroom. But as it happened, David and his men were hiding farther back in that very cave. Next slide. Now's your opportunity, David's men whispered to him. Today the Lord is telling you, I will certainly put your enemy into your power to do with as you wish. Next slide. So David crept forward and cut off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe while Saul was pooping. That's crazy. But then David's conscience began bothering him because he had cut Saul's robe. Next slide. He said to his men, the Lord forbid, listen to this, the Lord forbid that I should do this to my Lord the king. I shouldn't attack the Lord's anointed one, for the Lord himself has chosen him. The Lord himself has chosen him. Next one. So David restrained his men and did not let him kill Saul. After Saul had left the cave and gone on his way, next slide. Next slide. There it is. David came out and shouted after him, my Lord the king. And when Saul looked around, David bowed low before him. Next one. Then he shouted to Saul, why do you listen to the people who say I'm trying to harm you? This very day you can see with your own eyes that it isn't true. For the Lord placed you at my mercy back there in the cave. And some of my men told me to kill you, but I spared you. Side note. Friends, in this life you may encounter people telling you that praying for your friends isn't worth it. You might encounter people telling you that God hasn't given you what you wanted, so you might as well give up. You might encounter people telling you, I heard from the Lord, and the Lord has told me that you need to stop doing whatsoever it is. But I'm telling you tonight, you need to know the difference between opinions and the truth of what God says. You need to be able to distinguish the difference between voices with good intentions and the voice of God's truth. That's a side note. Because David had people telling him, the Lord has placed Saul in this cave at this moment for you to take his life. But David said, no, God has a plan, and Saul is his anointed one, and I am not the man. I am not the one who's going to kill what God is doing. I am not the one who's going to rush the plan because I want the outcome. I am not the one who's going to kill the king because I know that I'm supposed to be on the throne. I'm going to wait on God, and God's going to do what God needs to do, and God's going to work it all out for his glory and his good, and so I'm going to trust in the Lord. Recognize, friends, that David wasn't loyal to the outcome. He was loyal to the God of the process. David wasn't loyal to the throne that he was supposed to be on. He was loyal to God, the one who anointed him. And so David said, I'm not going to be the one who kills God's anointed child. I'm going to wait on the Lord. I'm going to trust that if I follow him and if I trust in him and if I believe in him, he will work it all out for his glory and his good. That's what it's all about. And so tonight, my first point is this. You can write it down in your notes section. Trust God in the process. Everybody say, trust God in the process. David knew that God had anointed Saul and had given him the kingdom first. And David recognized, I'm just a tool in God's hand. I am not God myself. I am just a tool in God's hand. I am not God myself. So I have to trust him in the process. Friends, I need you to understand something tonight. You have not been called to save the world. You have not been called to save the world. You've been called to tell the world about Jesus. You have not been called to fabricate the outcome. You have not been called to be the ones to bring salvation. You have been called to tell the world about Jesus, the only one who saves their souls. You have not been called to save the world. You have been called to tell the world about Jesus. Friends, there will come a day when you stand before Jesus and you answer for every decision that you've ever made, but you will not answer for the decisions that your friends make. And so here's what that means. That means that you will not be responsible for their salvation, but you will be responsible for the opportunities that you had to tell them about Jesus. You will not be held responsible if they choose not to follow Jesus. But you will be held responsible if you had the opportunity to share about who Jesus is to them and you kept your mouth shut. We got to trust God in the process, and we got to do exactly what he's asking us to do. Point number 2, this isn't mine. Say, this isn't mine. We have to recognize that all of this belongs to God. All of life and all of creation belongs to God. And all of it was meant to be a tool to point back to our Father. Everything. This is not mine. This church, this isn't my church. I may be a steward of this building, but this isn't my church. This is God's church. And I have to trust God that if I follow him, he's going to do what he wants to do with this church. You have to understand that your school is not your school. It's God's school. And so if you have to trust God that if you do what he's asked you to do at this moment in your school, he will work it all out. He will move mightily in your school because it's all his anyway. You can't worry about the outcome. You can't worry about if everybody's making the right decisions or not. You got to worry about yourself. You got to say, God, I'm going to do what you've asked me to do, and I'm going to trust that everything else is in your hands. You can't fabricate the outcome. This isn't yours. Your friend's life is not your life. Your friend was made in the image of God, created in his image. That means that he is putting so much trust in you to reach out to your friends. That means that your friend is his. Whoever it is in your life that needs to know Jesus, they are his. They are his creation. And you can trust that if you do what he's asking you to do, God will take care of the rest. God will take care of them. Your school is God's school. He cares far more than you do about the students, the teachers, the faculty, everybody who walks those hallways, which means that he has placed an incredible amount of trust in you. And he has planned opportunities that are waiting for you to reach your school. Everybody say, this isn't mine. My last point is this. This is for a lifetime. This is for a lifetime. You can see down in the corner there, those are 3 wolves. They're all part of the same wolf pack, even though they're different colors. 3 amigos, 3 brothers, 3 homies. Wolf pack right there. The dominant wolf in the wolf pack. Some of you have heard the term alpha. Alpha is no longer a correct term because alpha means that they were fighting for the status, and they fought for status in the group. And as we've studied wolves over a lifetime, people recognize wolves don't actually fight for status. It's just the strongest one is the dominant wolf. Okay? So the dominant wolf in the wolf pack stays, I found this out this past week. I thought this was phenomenal. The dominant wolf in the wolf pack stays with that wolf pack for a lifetime. And though wolves may grow and leave the pack, sometimes they come back. And instead of seeing them as too far gone, instead of seeing them as they left, they're not welcome back here, the dominant wolf in the wolf pack will always welcome them in because he cares about the wolf pack. Because he's loyal to his pack. Dominant wolves in the wolf pack will also allow strange wolves into the pack as long as they don't cause trouble. And the moment they cause trouble, the dominant wolf kicks them out. It's pretty sweet stuff. Check it out on Discovery Channel. But the dominant wolf is loyal to his pack. He's loyal to his friend wolves. He's loyal to his pack. Friends, your people, your friends should be able to trust that even if it takes until they're 70 years old to come to Jesus, that you will never give up on them. The lost people in your life that you are close to or you're going to get close to should be able to trust that you're going to be loyal to the process, and no matter what happens and no matter where they go, you care enough about them to continue to pray for them, reach out to them, and you'll always be a safe place for them to run if they need you. Why? Because this takes a lifetime. This takes a lifetime. I told you that I've been praying for my best friend since we were in 2nd grade. We both turned 29 this year. 29 years old. And he still tells me, I don't want to hear about Jesus. And every time we talk, it's a one-sided conversation. I ask him about his life. I ask him about what he's going through. I ask him about his job. And he doesn't ask me. Why? Because he doesn't want to know about Jesus. He doesn't want to know about Jesus. But what I've learned is that no matter what, he's in God's hands. No matter what, he's in God's hands. And so I will never stop praying for him. I will never stop believing for him. I will never stop trusting God for him, because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God says he will work everything together for my good. And I'm believing that one day him and I, my best friend and I, are going to be standing before Jesus together. I believe that. I believe that. And even if it takes until we're 99 years old and we're old and gray and we're sitting in rocking chairs at a nursing home, because that's our life playing together. Even if it takes until that day, I will never give up on him. And no matter how far he pushes me away, I will never give up on him, because I love him, I believe in him, and I know that he is made in the image of God. And so somewhere deep down inside, there is a voice calling out to him saying, you just need to come home. You just need to come home. And I believe in a God that is supernatural. I believe in a God who hears my prayers in Iowa and moves mountains in Arizona. I believe in a God that will hear me praying for my friend, and one day his voice will speak loud enough from the inside of his bones that he will have no other option but to respond. I will never stop believing that God will reach him. I will never stop believing that God is going to change his life. Friends, we've been called to be loyal to the process. And I need you to understand that God has not purposed you for a moment. He's called you for a lifetime. And so the question is, will you stay loyal? Will you stay loyal? The friends, the people that you meet right here, the people that you get closest to here, they don't have to leave your life at some point. I know when you grow up and you graduate high school and you move away, your high school friends become estranged. But that doesn't mean that you have to give up on them. That doesn't mean that you have to stop praying for them. And I believe that what you're doing right now in these moments is planting a seed in their life that God is going to water for a lifetime. But I also believe that one day, for me, one day, my friend is going to call me and say, August, there's a feeling in my soul that I can't get away from, and I need to know what it is. And I believe that that can happen for you. So will you stay loyal? You still with me? Right now, what I need you to do is I need you to stand up. I need you to find your small group. I need you to take your notes and your pencil and everything. I need you to find your small group, and I need you to sit in a circle in this room with your small group.